All right, so by popular demand, at least I got one vote. We're going to switch over to Unreal Engine 5. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make that switch. You will, of course, need to download and install the early access version 5 or whatever it is by the time you watch this video. Right now, it's early access 2. It could be the full release, but you'll need to have it installed. We do have our project that we started in 4.27.2 right here. So what we're going to do is just launch the engine. This may take a little bit of time here. If it does, I will pause the video. It's going pretty quick. I don't know if I can move this over there or not. Here, I can move this. Okay. So here is our tutorial, UECPP tutorial 1. That's got to be it. Okay. So then we'll select it. We know it's 4.27 right now. We'll just click on here to open. And it's going to ask us if we want to open it as a copy, which is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to tell it to open it as a copy. And it's going to create a copy of the project and upgrade it to 5.0. And hopefully this will work. If it doesn't, then we'll see what we need to do to fix whatever problems there are. And generating project files, that's good. So yeah, Unreal Engine 5.0 looks interesting. They got some new look of their internal built-in content anyway, and so we'll see how this goes. I'll probably in my test project, in my prep project, I had to fix a few things once I got in there, but it really wasn't a big deal to do that. So we'll see what we have to do in this one. One of the things, it wouldn't load the level for some reason. I think it didn't like the format of the level from the previous engine, so I had to create a new level, but that's not a big deal. We hadn't really created anything in that level anyway. So now we're generating code. So far this looks like it's going smoother than my previous run. That's good. So I'll pause the video until this is finished. If it causes errors, I'll show you those errors and see what we need to do to fix them. Okay, and here we are. And it can't load the map, and it can't find our character. That's okay. That's all done in C++. We do have a little bit of a new UI. Some things are different. I'll show you where some things are. If we hit Control Space, it should bring up... There it is. It should bring this up. The first thing that we're going to want to do is go ahead and go in here into, well, actually the first thing I want to do is create a new map. Let's create a new level. We'll create this fancy one, and then we'll file save it. Save the current level, and we will save it into, we'll create a folder here that we'll call levels. We'll go into that, and we'll save it here as we'll just call it, oops, dev map. That's good. And then we're going to go to edit, project settings, and it opened in my other screen. And we're going to go to maps and modes, and we'll select that dev map as the default editor map and the default game map for now. And that's fine. We can close that. And Control Space. We'll go in here into our CPP, and we'll go ahead. Oh, there's another thing I want to do. Edit. Editor preferences. I don't want to use Visual Studio for this. So here under source code, oh, it's already set to Visual Studio Code. That's nice. Okay, it to the other one. It didn't. It set it back to Visual Studio for some reason. So let's go into here and go ahead and open up our tutorial 1 character. Now this character here, which this is its class name, if we go over here to our game mode, CPP, it's got this statement in it here, looking for this first person character. I am going to get rid of that and this default class. I'm going to get rid of all this. I'm going to put the class name in here and go : static class, and just get the static class of that. And it's right there, the header file's in there and everything. We can save that now. Go back here to the engine, and there's no compile button up here. Nice big compile button. It's really obvious. It's right down here in the lower right hand side. To recompile your C++, you just click that and it compiles the C++ code. And we should have our game working in Unreal Engine 5. So welcome to Unreal Engine 5. That's what we're going to continue with for now. We're going to be doing a lot of C++, but as we move along, we will delve into different aspects of this new Unreal Engine and see how things work. And compile is completed. So let's go ahead and hit play and see if our character is working. And it looks like the character is working. And these things are all movable if we run into them. I assume if we had the full up character, we'd probably still have a gun. We could shoot these things. But I took the gun and all that out of this character, I do believe. Yeah, I did. So there we go. Things are working. So what do we do? So that's the transition to it. Oh, you can pin this if you want or dock it in the layout, but I kind of like this, having this nice big screen to work with this. And just when I want to see that window, just do this. I think that works pretty nice. We'll leave it that way for a while. I may dock it back and make it look like traditional Unreal Engine. We'll have to figure out where things are. They've moved things around quite a bit, it looks like. But so what are we going to do here? It still doesn't let you do that. Add Qixel content. Interesting. I wonder what that is. It wants me to allow some access here. So apparently maybe they've built in the Qixel connection stuff right into Unreal Engine 5. That would be nice. In the previous versions you had to use... Yep, it's opening it up in Bridge. So last time I did this with this Qixel Bridge thing, it messed up my project. So we'll see. But here's the Qixel Bridge, and it looks like we can probably add some things to this. No assets here. Browse now. So yeah, we can pick stuff right out of here and download them. And if you're not familiar with Qixel, Qixel Megascans, it's actually a paid-for service if you're not part of the Unreal Engine world. But if you are part of Unreal and you have an Unreal account, an Epic account, you can log in here and get all this stuff for free just for having an Epic account. So I'm going to close that for now. We're not going to deal with assets. Bring up the asset browser. So what I want to talk about in this video, well, let me see how much time we got here. We're only 10 minutes in. So what I want to talk about in this next video is the idea of an interface and the idea of how we can connect to things using an interface and how we can connect objects together without them knowing specifically about each other or the details of each other. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to delve into the idea of the base stuff, the fundamental stuff we need in order to create what will become an inventory and pickup system, and all the stuff associated with picking up items, placing items, destroying items, using items, all that stuff. So in order to do that, we need some very basic tools. And one of those basic tools we need is the ability to interact with something and have that thing we're interacting with be able to give us some information about itself, and do that through an interface. So what we're going to do is start off here by creating a new C++ class, and we're going to scroll down through here, and down here at the very bottom we'll see this Unreal interface, and that's the first thing that we're going to create. So we're going to click Next, and now I'm going to put this in a subfolder, and the way I'm going to do that is by putting the subfolder here, and I'm going to call this Interfaces. And I'm going to call this interface and interact. I'm going to just call it interact. And it's going to get an I interact associated with it. It designated that it's an interface. So we will just create this class. And this may take a few seconds here. It may take longer than a few seconds. Things will hopefully run a little bit faster for you. I am running recording software and some other kinds of software on my system in order to make these videos, and yeah, it gets a little bogged down at times when you're doing that much stuff all at once. So, and things can slow down even on this fairly decent gaming machine. It can get a little bit slow. So I'm going to pause this and I'll come back when it's done compiling. Okay, for some reason it failed to hot reload after creating that interface, and I think I know why, and it has to do with the fact that I put it in a folder. So that's okay. We're just going to go ahead and open it up in Visual Studio Code. It probably isn't going to show up in here just yet. Doesn't matter. We'll just open something up. It'll be here. It should be in Source Interfaces, Interact CPP. Yeah, it doesn't like this. And I'm not sure why it always sticks it in there. But if we save that and go back to Unreal Engine and hit compile again, it should successfully compile. It's in that folder, and so for some reason it puts it in the folder, but it's in the folder, and the CPP file is in the folder. So yeah, the include shouldn't have that interfaces on it. Of course, we may have to use that differently in other things, a different path to it, but that CPP file's path to that interface sauce. So here it worked this time, and we have our interfaces folder, so we can open up that interface now. So interfaces in Unreal Engine come in two parts. You don't have to worry about this one, okay? You don't do it. This class does not need to be modified. You leave that alone entirely. This is the one that you modify, and the only thing we're going to put in here is functions. So we're going to create two functions now. Interfaces. I'm a big believer in a thing called the single responsibility principle. This is one of the main characteristics of what is called solid design, and I'll do some presentations on that along the way here, probably on solid. But the single responsibility principle is the S in solid. It's the first one, and in my opinion, the most important one. That means we want to limit things to having the least number of responsibilities possible within the system, preferably just a single responsibility. And that's what we're going to do here. Interact is going to have one and only one responsibility within this interface, and that is going to be to interact. And so we're going to create a U property, and we don't want it to be any of this. What we want this to be is blueprint implementable event. I don't know why it's not coming up. And it's going to be in the category of interaction. That's because it didn't come up because it's not a U property, it's a U function. My mistake. U function. It's not going to be blueprint callable. It's going to be a blueprint implementable event. And it's not going to be blueprint pure, any of this. And it's going to be a category of C++. No. It's going to be in a category of interaction. Now we'll put it in the category of events because it's an event. And it's going to be called void interact. And that's it. And then we're going to create another one, a virtual function, virtual void interact. We can't call it the same thing. Interact. Interact CPP. So this is the one that is going to be called, if we want to call the interact function from our C++ code, we'll call this one. If we want to call it from Blueprint, we'll call this one. And what we'll do is in our actual class that implements this, we'll implement this function in such a way that this no, we don't want this to be implemented. Do we want this to be blueprint implementable event? Yeah, in case we want to use this in a blueprint and implement the behavior in blueprint. Yeah, so these have nothing to do with each other. This is if we want to implement a class in C++. This is if we want to implement a class in blueprint. That's our entire interface for interact. Okay, so now the thing is to use this interface in some way. So let's set up our character to be able to interact with things. And we might do this different in the future, but for now, we're going to do it in a very simple way. Okay? And we're going to do that. 1 second. Let me fire up something here. Move this over to here. I'm going to pause the video for just a second. Okay, I'm back. All right, so we're going to start by right here in our header file. I guess it doesn't matter. We can make it a simple public function here. It's just going to be void interact. And this is the function we're going to call on our character when we want to interact with something in the environment. And that's going to be a key press probably. So when we come upon something we want to interact with, we press like the E key, and if it's interactable, it'll do something. So let's open up our character CPP, and we'll start with taking a look at here's our character. I'm looking for something in specific. I don't know why I'm not seeing it. We're going to want, I should have taken this stuff out. We don't need this motion controller, VR gun, and junk. We'll do that at some point in time. here it is, the player input. So right below this, I'm going to go ahead and create that method void interact. And we will put this, got to name the class that we're in here. Now, for this interact, so for this interact, what we're going to do is basically from our camera, which is our eyes, shoot a line out. If we go back to the engine real quick and hit play. Come on, play. There we go. So we have this crosshair here, and we're going to shoot a ray out from our screen right through that crosshair. So whatever we're pointing that crosshair at is what we will ultimately interact with. So let's go back to Visual Studio Code. And to do that, we have to set some things up. So the first thing we're going to set up is called an F vector. We'll call it start. This is the start location. And we're going to get our first person camera, which should be first person camera component. So we want to get our first person camera component, and we want to get component location. So this is going to be the three-dimensional location of our camera in real space. And then we need another F vector we'll call end, and this is going to equal start plus. We're going to start at that start location, and we're going to add this first person camera component pointer get forward vector. So this is just a vector. It's a normalized vector, which means it's got a length of 1, but it's pointing in the direction that our camera is pointing in. And so we need to multiply it by some distance. Well, we work in centimeters in Unreal Engine 4. If you're not familiar with a centimeter, if you hold your thumb and forefinger up about a ½ inch apart, that's about a centimeter. There are 100 centimeters in a meter, so if we're 5 meters out, that would be 500 centimeters. So let's multiply it by 500. Let's make it 3 meters, 300. That's 9 feet. I think 3 meters is good. So now we've got two vectors, a start location and an end location of where we're going to project this beam. So when we do this, we need a thing called a hit result, and we'll just call it hit result. Except it's F hit result, and we'll call it hit result. So we're going to get into that when we create structures. Structures start with an F. So a vector is a structure, a hit result is a structure. When we create our own structure, we'll have to call it F something. And we're going to do that when we get into item data and other stuff. So we need an F collision query params. We'll just call that params. Now the params, what we want to do is, this isn't absolutely necessary for our first person, but we're going to at some point in time make it switchable between first and third person. So I'm going to put this in, and just in case we have a character, our own character, between us and the target, and it hits it, we want it to just ignore us. And our camera might be kind of inside or slightly behind our hitboxes, so it's probably a good idea to ignore it there. So now what we're going to do is, in an if statement, we're going to get the world. Oops. Let's make it world. And from here, we're going to call line trace single by channel. Now this takes a bunch of parameters. It takes the hit result. Oops. Hit result. It takes our start. Oops. Start. It takes our end. Now there's a visibility thing, and it's ECC, which is ECC stands for the channel. It's the kind of channel that it's in. So ECC visibility, and then our params. So if we get the hit, then we want to get an actor and check to make sure it's valid. And this actor is going to be the hit result dot get actor. So it's going to return a pointer to our actor. And if that's not null, then this part here will activate. And so for now, what we're going to do is call UE log, log temp. We'll make it a warning, and we'll pass it some text, and we'll just say got hit colon %s, and then out here we'll pass it. We're going to dereference this actor because it's really sort of a pointer to a pointer that it returns. So we're going to dereference the actor. We still use the pointer and get name. And we should be almost there. We've got this on here, okay? But we're still not working with that interface. We'll work with that shortly. Let's head back over to Unreal Engine and make sure this compiles, that I didn't do anything wrong. I probably did. There's probably a silly mistake somewhere whenever you're typing code. Almost always happens, and that's why the compiler is really your best friend. You can sit and stare at code all day long and think that it's all correct. The compiler knows whether it's correct or not, and it will tell you very quickly if you've made a mistake. Well, at least it will in most compilers. For some reason, in Unreal Engine 4, it can take a while to compile even simple changes, but that's because it's compiling an awful lot of code when you do this. It's got to generate all these special classes we're creating with all these special macros in them. It's generating a great deal of under-the-hood code that has to do with the Unreal Engine reflection system. If you've taken my C++ courses or my F# course and things like that, you might realize that raw, ordinary C++ doesn't really have much of a reflection system. There are some libraries that can do it. Boost has some reflection stuff in it, but C++ compiled code doesn't contain any metadata typically to act upon at runtime. Whereas in the Unreal Engine C++, they've generated and created their own metadata in the form of all of these special defines that they use. And so they have a reflection system that can find and instantiate classes in a very dynamic way, in a way closer to what things like C# and F# and the .NET framework can do. So that reflection system is quite powerful in this, but it can take a while for some of this code to compile. So I'm going to pause the video here and wait for this to finish compiling, and when it does, I will come right back. There is one thing I forgot to do. Now that we've got this interact function here, I'm going to copy this whole thing. We need to come up here and bind it. And so I'll just paste that in there for the moment. I'm going to grab one of these bind functions that's already done here. Put it right down here. We're going to call this. Now this is the name of the thing we're binding to. So we're going to have to create this in the engine, and I'll show you how we do that. It's an input mapping. So I'll just cut that, and we'll come down here and we'll replace this with our function. So now that's going to bind to interact. Okay, but there is no interact yet in the engine. So let's go back and create that in the engine, then we'll compile. So what we want to do is go up here to Edit, Project Settings, and it's going to be down here in Input. And then we have these action mappings, and we've got Jump, Fire, and Fire VR. First of all, I'm going to get rid of Fire VR. Don't need it. I'm going to get rid of Fire for now. We don't need it. And we'll just create a new one, and we'll call this Interact. Did I spell it right? Got to spell it exactly the same the way we did in the C++. And I want this to be the E key. And here's the E key. Will cause us to interact with an object, and that's all we need there. And so now, once again, we will compile it, and hopefully this will work. By the way, the fact that the code is still binding to those things I deleted doesn't matter. It shouldn't produce any error. It simply won't find the binding, so it won't create the binding. We'll eventually go in and eliminate that VR stuff from our character. I'm not going to be doing anything with VR in any of these video tutorials because I don't have VR equipment. So if you want to learn about virtual reality in Unreal Engine, I'm sure there's tutorials out there. I simply can't do it. I'm not going to buy that equipment, at least not right now. You never know what the future holds, though. We'll see. So while this is compiling, I'll pause and I'll be right back. Okay, it failed to compile, of course. Let's see what the error is here. Error. Add ignore actor is not a F collision query parameters. Okay. Let's look at that. Oops. Let's look at that. That's because it's add ignored actor with a D. Okay, so let's recompile again, and I will pause and be back right away. Okay, it failed again. This time first person camera component. Did I mistype it? First person camera component. First persons. Let's make it first person camera component. Yep, typo. Okay, we'll try again. That's all we can do is keep compiling it. We make errors. Okay, this time it compiled successfully. So let's go in here and play and see what happens. Now we get a whole bunch of warnings here because of our VR component, but if we pull up here and hit E, we should get gotta hit ball. That's working. We hit E on this one. Gotta hit cube 4. Not close enough. Gotta hit cube B. Gotta hit cube 3. Cube 7. Oh, I bumped it. Cube 0. Cube. We're knocking them around. Cube 2. Not close enough. Cube 1. What's this thing here? Pyramid. So, yep. So our interact thing is working. In the next video, we're going to have these interactable objects, real interactable objects in here. I'm going to show you how to build that. They're going to implement that interface, and they're going to do something. Our character is interacting. Now we've got to build some interactable objects, and we can then start working on our items and item inventories and user stats and all that, all the stuff we're going to build in C++. But we're always going to consider the designer being able to use our C++ code easily. So that's a key component in this. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. If you liked it, hit that like button. If you really liked it, hit that subscribe button. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.